Have you ever wondered how to take a large group of files and process them all at the same time using the same effects and settings? We're going to talk about that. It's called batch processing now. The real cool guy. Okay, so batch processing is the act of taking a group of files, say you have 5 files that you want to process in an identical way, and then sticking them into an automated system that will run them through the process and then spit you out files that have been processed all identically. So let's jump into Adobe Audition and talk about 1, batch processing, and then 2, the effects rack and how that can be used for individual files. So if you jump into Adobe Audition CS6, which is what I am using for my recording, there are 2 different ways that you can process audio. Well, really, there's 3 different ways that you can process audio with multiple effects. One is you can use the effects rack. And to use the effects rack, you're going to start by, figuring out what processes you want to use. Let's just say, for the sake of discussion, we want to use a high-pass filter, a compressor, we want to normalize, and we want to use a hard limiter, and then a de-esser at the end. So we're going to put all those things in. So we're going to start for the effects rack. We're going to go over here, and we're going to click on this little arrow for the first effect. And please remember that this is the order in which the processes are going to occur. So you got to do them in the right order. So we're going to start off by doing a high-pass filter. So we're going to go to EQ, we're going to go to graphic EQ, and then I've got this high-pass filter set at 63 hertz here. So we're just gonna stick that in there, and then we're going to close it. Those settings are already the way we want them. Next one is we are going to compress. Let us use a single band compressor. And let's do it for 4:1, and let's do it at a ratio of -15. So this is all assuming that you know what these settings are. Okay, so one of the things that we'll notice is that if we wanted to normalize using the effects rack, we couldn't just go down to an effect and click normalize because there is not one in there. So the only way that we can do normalize in the effects rack is if we amplify. So basically, we can click Amplify. We can see that the audio right now is peaking at -3. So if we wanted it at -1, that means we need to do a boost of 2 dB. All right, so we're going to do a 2 dB boost in there. And then let's say that we want to hard limit at -3. Not saying that's necessarily what you would want to do, but just for the sake of how to do it, we're going to do it. And then the next one we're going to do is a de-esser. And we're just going to slap that on there with the basic settings. I'm not even going to deal with what it sounds like because at this point, we're not going to figure that out. So if you did want to do that, you could just play it. One of the things about futures markets, and that would show you what all of these things will sound like put together. So we're going to stick that in there. Now, this, for one audio file, all you have to do is hit apply. And it will do all of those things that you just asked it to do. So I'm going to undo that, and then if I want to save this, I will just click here, save the preset name as, we'll just say typical rack 1. This is not my typical rack, but if you wanted to use it for that, then you can. So then if you had multiple files, the way that you would do this is you would go apply. Then you would go to your next file, and you would go down to typical rack 1, and you would click apply. And then you would go to the next one, and you would go typical rack 1, apply. Now, you have favorites here, and favorites are similar to the effects rack in that they are a stack of audio file or of effects. However, once you save a favorite, you can't go back and change it. Now, in the effects rack, you could go back. Let's say I was like, oh, well, I like how that all sounded, but I think the compression was a little too steep. I can edit, and I can change, or the ratio was a little bit too much. We can change that. And that's no big deal. In the favorite, once you save the favorite, you have to re-record the favorite in order to make a change. Okay, so now that you know the difference between an effects rack and a favorite, let's talk about how to record a favorite, because you're going to need to record a favorite in order to process multiple files in the same way. So we're going to go favorites, then we're going to go start recording. Now we can do exactly the same processes that we just did in the other, in the effects rack, but this is going to be saved as a favorite. So we're going to start off with the EQ to do the high pass filter. We're going to hit apply. Then we're going to go to our single band compressor. We have the same, well, let's do this at negative 12, or was it 15? I don't really remember what it was, but it was 4 to 1. That's fine. We're going to click apply. Then we can in this one, normalize as a process. So we're going to normalize to negative 1 dB. We're going to hit OK. That's going to do that. Then we are going to hard limit at negative 4. Then we're going to run our de-esser just as is. Okay, so that does all of those things, and then now you can see you go down here and hit stop recording. Now, if you want to save it, like if you're satisfied with what you just did, we can save this under the same name, typical rack 1. Saved. Now, in our other audio files, we can just click favorites, click on typical rack 1, and it will do the same thing that the effects rack did. So the favorite and an effects rack preset are very similar, except for you can't change the settings in a favorite once you've saved it. Now we're going to use this little box right here. This is called the batch process. And the way that we do the batch processing is we grab all these files, we drag them and drop them in there. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we could, if we wanted to, only grab a couple. You don't have to grab all of them. However, for our purposes, we do want all of them. I don't like how that is listed. I like things to be numerical. So with batch process, basically you're going to pick a favorite. We're going to say typical rack 1, and it is going to process all of these files the same way. Now you can export if you'd like to export. We will talk about that in a second. I am going to not export, and I'm just going to click run. Now it's going to go through and it's going to process all of the audio in exactly the same way. So now that those are all processed, let's pretend you wanted to also export them when you run the favorite. You would just click the export button, or the export checkbox there, click the export settings, and then you would go in here and you would set up what you want the result to be of the export. Do you want to export as MP3 into a different location? Do you want it to be in the same location with different names? Do you want it to overwrite your existing files? Whatever it is that you want to do, you set it up right here and you click OK. Now you would hit run. When you run it, it would process the track with the favorite and then export. Now let's think about this. If you wanted to not process the audio, say you've already processed all the audio and all you want to do is export everything as an MP3. Now all you need to do is click none for favorite. Then set up your settings the way that you like it and hit run. And basically all it will do at that point is export the audio as according to the settings that you set up. Okay, now you know how to use all those processes. How about if you have a favorite that you want to use regularly to process your audio and you wanted to set it up as a hotkey? So you could say, hit Shift Command F as your favorite thing that you process. I'm just making those hotkey numbers up. But basically what you're going to do is you're going to go to Edit, and you're going to go down to Keyboard Shortcuts. In Keyboard Shortcuts, you'll see right away, right here, it says Favorites. And if you open that up, you can see a list. Now we'll go down to Typical Rack 1. We'll click Add, and we'll go Shift Command F. If there is a conflict, like if there's another hotkey or keyboard shortcut that already exists for that shortcut that you're trying to use, it will tell you. But currently, there is no conflict for Shift Command F. So then we'll just hit OK. Now you can just hit Shift Command F and it will run your process the way that you want it to. All right, so there you have it. That's how you process multiple files using multiple different effects. Remember, the effects rack gives you the ability to process single files with multiple effects, and it gives you the ability to edit the effects, the settings in the effects. Favorites gives you the ability to just build a favorite group of settings or group of processes that you want to run regularly on audio files, but you can't change the settings once it's recorded. If you want to change the settings, you have to re-record the entire favorite. And then batch process gives you the ability to run a favorite on a group of files and the ability to export files whether or not you use a favorite. You can either use none and just export, or you can use a favorite and then process the audio files with the favorite and then export them in whatever way you see fit. Thanks. We'll catch you next time. I'm Jason Huggins, the Real Cool Guy. The Real Cool Guy.